What does it mean to be worthy? Can a monster be worthy? The inscription says, "Whoever holds this hammer, if they be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor." For decades, we thought those words on the side of Mjolnir were a description of one man, a golden-haired prince of Asgard. We thought worthiness looked like a god. But in 1983, the Marvel Universe learned a shocking lesson. Sometimes, worthiness looks like a monster. Today, we're journeying into deep space to meet a cybernetic horse-faced alien who didn't just match the God of Thunder, he humbled him. This is the story of a hero who sacrificed his own face, his own body, and his own humanity to save his people. This is the ballad of Beta Ray Bill. Welcome back to Marvel Echoes Resonance. I'm your host, Will. If you've been listening to our show for a while, specifically back in episode 27, we talked about Thor Odinson. We talked about how his origin was a lesson in humility, Odin stripping a prince of his power to teach him that nobility isn't a birthright. Well, today's character is the perfect counterpoint to that. If Thor had to learn to be worthy, Beta Ray Bill was made worthy through the fires of absolute suffering. Now, to understand Bill, we have to transport ourselves back to the early 1980s. The legendary writer and artist Walter Simonson took over the mighty Thor with issue number 337. And folks, he didn't just open the door, he kicked it right off the hinges. On the cover of that issue, you see a familiar logo. You see the hammer. But holding it isn't the handsome Avenger we know. It's this terrifying orange-skinned, horse-faced creature in a sci-fi battlesuit. He was smashing the logo to pieces. It was a visual shock to the system. So who is he? Bill isn't a god. He's a Korbinite. He comes from a peaceful civilization in the burning galaxy. But tragedy struck. And for many of you out there, you know that sometimes war will come to your doorstep, whether you like it to or not. The fire demon Surtur, basically the devil of Norse mythology, destroyed their galaxy to forge his twilight sword. The Korbinites were decimated. They fled on a fleet of starships, refugees looking for a new home. But they need a protector, a guardian. The Korbinite scientists created a contest to find who was the most physically and mentally resilient among them. Ben won the contest. But the prize? The prize was torture. They carved him up. They bioengineered him into a cybernetic weapon. They transferred his consciousness into a biomechanical body designed to look like the fierce wildlife of their planet, to scare off predators. He gave up his humanity, or Korbinitity, to become a monster so his people could sleep at night. He became Beta Ray. Now, here's where it gets interesting, or should I say more interesting. Bill is put into stasis on his sentient ship, Skuttlebutt. And if you grew up in the 80s like me, think of Skuttlebutt as a mix of, Kit from Knight Rider and the Enterprise computer from Star Trek. She's not a vehicle. She's his companion. Well, S.H.I.E.L.D. detects the fleet entering our solar system and asks Thor to investigate. Thor lands on his ship. Bill wakes up, and, they throw down. During the fight, Thor gets separated from his hammer. And if you missed our previous episode, back in the day, Thor, if he let go of Mjolnir for 60 seconds, he reverted back into his mortal form, Donald Blake. So, Bill knocks out Thor, sees the cane lying on the ground, picks it up, and strikes it against the wall in pure frustration. Krakoom! Lightning flashes, the armor appears, the power flows. Bill looks at his hand and realizes he possesses the power of a god. This was huge. It was the sword in the stone moment, but instead of King Arthur, it's a predator. Odin summons Bill to Asgard, and he's confused as heck. He says, "The hammer is for my son." But the enchantment doesn't lie. Whoever holds the hammer, if they be worthy. He didn't say, if he be Asgardian. It didn't say, if he be handsome. It said, worthy. Odin decides they have to fight for the right of the hammer. He transports them to the realm of Svartalfheim, a volcanic wasteland. Now, this favors Bill because his physiology was engineered to survive extreme heat. They fight until they both drop. Bill wins. Again. But here's the echo. The moment that defines his legacy. Bill could have taken the hammer. He won it fair and square. But he sees Thor lying there unconscious in the lava. And instead of claiming his prize, he saves Thor's life. He refused to take the hammer if it meant letting a noble warrior die. That refusal, that was the ultimate proof. Odin was so impressed that he pulled a move that changed Marvel history. He went to the Dwarf King Eitri, and that's the same guy who made Mjolnir, and commissioned a new weapon. A golden hammer axe. He called it Stormbreaker. He gave Stormbreaker to Bill, granting him the same power as Thor, but letting him keep his own identity. They became Oath Brothers. And I love this dynamic because it's not a rivalry like it was with Hercules. It's a deep mutual respect. Thor respects Bill because Bill knows the burden of leadership in a way that even Thor sometimes struggles with. Bill carries the souls of his entire extinction-level species on his back. So let's fast forward a bit and catch you up on where the cybernetic champion has been riding in the modern era. Because Bill didn't just stay in the 80s, his story has rippled out into the cosmic side of the Marvel Universe. For a long time, Bill was a heavy hitter. You called when, well, Thor was busy with the Avengers, or other things. He showed up in the Annihilation Wars, which we'll definitely cover in a future episode, acting as a literal one-man army against the Annihilation Wave. He saved Nova, he fought alongside the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he really cemented himself as a top-tier cosmic defender. But it didn't stop there. In the Godhunter arc, Bill went to war with, well, Galactus himself, the World Eater. He had devoured the Korbinite's new home. Bill hunted him across the cosmos, destroying planets to starve him out, and even cracking his armor in a blind rage. It showed us that Bill's nobility has a very terrifying edge when his people are threatened. But the real emotional evolution happened recently, in the last few years. During the Dan Coates run on Thor, around 2020, Thor became the king of Asgard, and actually accepted the power of Galactus to stop a greater threat. Bill didn't take it very well. He saw his brother becoming a tyrant. They fought, and in a heartbreaking moment, Thor, driven by anger, smashed Stormbreaker. He broke Bill's hammer. This sent Bill into a spiral, and this leads us directly into one of the best comics of the last decade, Beta Ray Bill, Argent Star, by Daniel Warren Johnson. If you read one thing about this character, read this series. Without his hammer, Bill loses the ability to change back into his normal humanoid form. He's stuck looking like a monster 24/7. And we see that the deep trauma it causes. He looks in the mirror and he hates what he sees. He feels unlovable. He's leading the survivors of his people, but he can't even look them in the eye. The story follows Bill on a quest to find a new weapon, the Twilight Sword of Surtur, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, inside the dimension of Muspelheim. It's heavy metal, it's action-packed, but at its core, it's a story about dysmorphia and self-acceptance. Bill eventually realizes that he doesn't need a magic hammer to be beautiful or worthy. He doesn't need to be like the golden god to be a hero. He embraces his cybernetic form. He repairs Skuttlebutt, who actually gains a humanoid form for a little bit, adding a real sweet layer to their relationship, and he reclaims his confidence. And now that brings us to the cutting edge of 2025. Well, we're at the tail end now. Following the massive One World Under Doom event, the landscape has shifted drastically. With Thor Odinson compromised and off the board, the Avengers need a powerhouse. They need a thunder god. So, Bill stepped up. He isn't just a cosmic wanderer anymore. He is currently serving as the acting Thor for the Avengers. He's guarding the realms, Stormbreaker in hand, proving once and again that the mantle of thunder isn't about bloodlines, it's about action. He stands as a unique figure, the protector of the downtrodden and the guy that the Avengers call when they need something smashed with absolute precision and honor, unlike a big green guy we know. Bill's story resonates because it forces us to look past the surface. He was designed to look like a demon so he could fight demons, but his soul is arguably purer than the gods he fights beside. So I'll leave you with this question. In a universe filled with gods who are born into power, is the man who had to undergo torture and mutilation to earn his power actually more worthy of a hero? Is his sacrifice the true measure of a god? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for listening to this episode of Marvel Echoes. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Ballad of Beta Ray Bill, make sure you subscribe or follow so you don't miss any of our future episodes. Leaving a like and a review really helped the podcast grow, and I really enjoy reading every single one of them. If there's a cosmic character you want to see next, maybe Nova or even Galactus, drop it in the comments below. And for more content, including a full breakdown of Bill's origin, a new reader guide, and infographics on the power of Stormbreaker, be sure to visit our website at the links below. Till next time, true believers, make mine Marvel.